The elevator that stopped on a floor that doesn't exist. I used to work the night shift in a corporate office building that stayed busy during the day but felt completely lifeless after midnight. It was the kind of place where everything followed a pattern so consistent that you eventually stopped questioning it. Rows of identical offices, long quiet hallways, and a system that recorded every movement made the building feel less like a workplace and more like something designed to observe itself. My job was simple. Check a few floors, monitor the cameras, and log anything unusual. After a while, nothing ever was. That's what made it easy to ignore small inconsistencies, because you stop trusting your instincts and start trusting what the system tells you is real. The only unusual thing I had ever heard came from another night shift worker who had been there longer than me. He once mentioned, almost casually, that the elevator sometimes behaved strangely late at night. Not in a way you could prove. Just small glitches, floor numbers flickering, stops that didn't feel timed correctly. He said it like a joke, like something people convince themselves of after too many quiet shifts, and I didn't take it seriously. Systems fail, buildings settle, and small irregularities don't usually mean anything. That night didn't feel different at first. I checked in at 10 p.m., completed my initial round, and everything was exactly as it should have been. Doors locked, lights off where needed, and no movement anywhere on the cameras. By around 1 a.m., the building had reached that deep kind of silence where even small sounds feel out of place. I was heading back to the security desk when I decided to take the elevator instead of the stairs, mostly out of habit rather than necessity. The elevator responded normally when I pressed the button. The doors opened, I stepped inside, and I selected the ground floor. As the doors closed, I caught my reflection briefly in the metal surface. Nothing unusual, just the same tired expression I had every night. The elevator began moving smoothly, but a few seconds into the descent, the floor indicator flickered. It changed from 5 to 4, then went blank for a fraction of a second before showing 5 again. It wasn't enough to trigger panic, but it was enough to make me pay attention. Then the movement slowed, and without any clear reason, the elevator came to a stop and the doors opened. The display still showed the same floor, but something about the timing felt wrong, like I had arrived somewhere I wasn't supposed to yet. For a moment, I stayed inside, considering whether to close the doors and continue, but the stillness outside drew my attention in a way I couldn't ignore. It looked normal at first glance. The same layout, the same dim lighting, the same arrangement of offices stretching down the corridor. There was nothing immediately out of place, and that was exactly what made it feel unsettling. I stepped out, and the first thing I noticed was how the space felt contained. The air wasn't colder or warmer, but it felt restricted, like it didn't extend beyond what I could see. The lights hummed faintly, but the sound didn't travel far, as if it was being absorbed by the walls themselves. I took a few steps forward and realized my footsteps sounded softer than they should have, almost muted. The shadows didn't align properly either, falling in directions that didn't match the lighting. I turned back toward the elevator, intending to leave immediately, but the doors were already closed. I pressed the call button, but nothing happened. For the first time, I felt a clear sense of unease. Trying to stay calm, I moved further down the corridor, telling myself it was just a lighting issue or a floor layout I wasn't familiar with. Everything looked identical: desks, chairs, monitors, but nothing felt used, like everything existed only to appear correct, rather than actually being part of a functioning space. That was when I saw my ID card lying on one of the desks, placed neatly beside a keyboard. For a moment, I didn't react. I simply stared at it, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I reached up instinctively and touched my own ID clipped to my shirt, confirming it was still there. I looked back at the desk, and there was no difference. Same name, same photo, same details. Before I could make sense of it, I heard a soft sound behind me, a distant ding that sounded like the elevator. I turned immediately, but the elevator doors were still closed. The sound came again, slightly closer, even though nothing had moved. That was when I noticed something else at the far end of the corridor, beyond the elevator. A hallway that hadn't been there before extended into darkness, just far enough that I couldn't see its end. And within that darkness, something was standing. It wasn't moving or shifting, just present. Even from a distance, there was something unnatural about the way it stood, as if it didn't understand movement at all. I didn't try to look at it for long. I turned and walked quickly back toward the elevator, my focus narrowing with each step. The silence felt heavier now, pressing inward instead of fading away. As I reached the doors, they opened immediately, almost as if they had been waiting for me. I stepped inside and pressed the ground floor button repeatedly, trying to steady my breathing. As the doors began to close, I glanced at the reflection in front of me. There was someone standing behind me, perfectly aligned with my position. Same posture, same stance, but completely still. There was no movement, no sign of breathing, just a presence that didn't belong. The doors closed before I could react, and the elevator began moving again. When it opened, everything was normal. The lighting was brighter, the air felt real again, and the building returned to its usual state. I walked straight back to the security room and sat down, trying to rationalize what had just happened. After a few minutes, I checked the system logs, and according to the records, I had never used the elevator at all. There was no movement recorded, no access between floors. Nothing to suggest I had left the security room. I checked the employee database next, and my name was still there, but now there were 2 entries, both identical in every way, same name, same ID, same image. One was marked as active, and the other was marked as in use. I haven't used the elevator since that night, but sometimes, when the building is completely silent, I still hear it stop on a floor that doesn't exist, and I can't shake the feeling that something is still there, waiting in that space, occupying the version of me that never came back. I used to work night security at a distribution warehouse just outside a small industrial area. It wasn't the kind of place anyone would expect something strange to happen. The building was simple. 1 main floor, long storage aisles, a small office section, and a basement level used mostly for electrical systems and old equipment. Most nights were completely uneventful, which is exactly why I didn't question anything at first. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 inches the morning, and the routine never changed. I would clock in, do a full walkthrough, check every door, and then sit in the security office watching camera feeds until it was time for another round. After a while, you stop paying attention to small details. You trust the system, and more importantly, you trust the silence. That night started like every other. The day guard mentioned maintenance had been working earlier, something about a power fluctuation affecting the basement level. He didn't seem concerned, just warned me that a few systems might glitch for a while. I didn't think much of it. During my first round, everything checked out. All doors were locked, including the basement door in the back corridor. I remember specifically testing it, pulling it twice to make sure it was secure. Around 12:30 a.m., I was sitting in the security room flipping through camera feeds when something on the basement camera caught my attention. The screen flickered briefly, like a signal drop, then came back. At first, I didn't notice anything unusual, but then I realized the basement door was slightly open. Not wide, just enough to see darkness behind it. I leaned closer, trying to convince myself I had missed something earlier, but I knew I hadn't. I had checked that door. I grabbed my radio and called out to see if anyone from maintenance had come back into the building. There was no response, just static. That alone wasn't unusual, but combined with what I was seeing, it didn't sit right. After watching the feed for another minute and seeing no movement, I decided to check it myself. The walk down the back corridor felt different that time. Not dramatically, but quieter than usual, like the building had settled into a deeper silence. When I reached the basement door, I noticed it was open wider than what I had seen on the camera. That detail stuck with me immediately. I pushed the door open slowly and stepped inside. The temperature dropped slightly as soon as I entered. The basement lights were on, but dim and inconsistent, some flickering just enough to make the shadows feel uneven. I called out once, expecting no answer, and got exactly that, just silence. I moved further inside, scanning with my flashlight even though the overhead lights were technically working. Everything looked normal at first. Old equipment, storage racks, pipes along the ceiling. But then I heard something behind me. It wasn't a clear sound, just a slight shift, like something had adjusted its position after I walked past. I turned quickly, shining my light back down the hallway, but there was nothing there. I stood still for a few seconds, listening. My own breathing sounded louder than usual. Eventually, I convinced myself it was just the building settling. Places like that always make noise at night. I turned back and kept walking, but that's when I noticed the maintenance room door at the far end of the hallway was open. That door was supposed to stay locked at all times unless someone had proper access. As I approached it, I saw something on the floor that made me slow down. Faint footprints, not clear but visible enough to follow. They were uneven, spaced awkwardly, like whoever made them had been walking slowly and dragging their feet between steps. The footprints led straight into the maintenance room, and none of them came back out. I stopped at the doorway and looked inside. The room appeared empty. Tools, panels, wiring, everything looked in place, nothing obviously disturbed. But something about it felt off, like the air inside the room was heavier than the hallway. Before I could step in, I heard it again, this time closer, a soft dragging sound behind me. I turned immediately, but again, nothing was there. Still, the hallway felt different now, quieter than before, in a way that didn't feel natural. I stepped back from the room and decided to head out. As I turned toward the basement door, I saw something that made me freeze for a second. The door at the end of the hallway was now closed. I didn't remember closing it, and I definitely didn't hear it shut. I started walking toward it, a little faster now. About halfway there, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate, matching my pace but slightly off timing. I stopped walking. The footsteps stopped too. I took another step forward. They followed again, still slightly delayed, like an echo that didn't belong to me. My chest tightened, but I didn't turn around. I just kept moving toward the door, faster this time. The footsteps adjusted, staying just behind me, never getting closer, never falling back. When I reached the door, I grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't move. Locked. I tried again, harder this time, but it wouldn't open. That's when the footsteps behind me stopped completely. The silence that followed felt worse than the sound. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what was happening, when I heard something very close behind me, breathing. Not loud, not aggressive, just close enough that I could feel it without hearing it clearly. I didn't turn around. I slammed my hand against the door and pulled again, harder than before, and this time, it suddenly gave way. The door opened, and I stepped through immediately, not looking back even once. I walked straight back to the security room and locked the door behind me. I didn't leave that room for the rest of the night. I didn't do another round, didn't check the basement again. I just sat there watching the monitors. The basement camera feed looked normal. The door was closed. Nothing moved. Nothing seemed out of place. When the morning shift arrived, I reported everything. They checked the system logs while I stood there. According to the records, I had never left the security room that entire night. No door access, no basement entry, nothing. Even the cameras didn't show me walking down the corridor. It was like I had imagined the entire thing, but I know I didn't. Because right before I left, I checked the basement camera one last time, and there was something new in the frame. A set of faint footprints near the door, leading out of the basement, stopping just short of the camera's view, like whatever made them knew exactly where it would no longer be seen.